So our next panel discussion for the day is titled Black, Non-Binary and Trans in the Swedish Healthcare System. It is moderated by Kylo Andersson with speakers Esse, Nala El Reyes, and Halima Handule. Kylo, who uses pronouns they, them, has been active in queer and leftist organizing in Gothenburg on and off for 7 years. They dream of self-determination for queer, trans people and sex workers. For money, Kylo is a PhD student for gender and technology and has worked in Västra Götalandsregionen as an assistant nurse and switchboard operator. Esse uses they, them pronouns and is a Nigerian-Swedish multidisciplinary artist and cultural worker based in Gothenburg. Their work engages with topics that are LGBTQIA+ related and mental health issues. Esse has a BFA degree in film composition from HTK Valland Academy of Arts Design, University of Gothenburg. Nala uses her, they, and them pronouns and is originally from Egypt, born and raised in Sweden and currently based in Stockholm. Nala works as a music producer and DJ under the name Nala the Doll. They've been previously active in the ballroom scene where they walk the category of realness. Nala also contributed to trans and BIPOC advocacy through involvement in organizations like Transi Göteborg and Reclaim Pride. In their free time, Nala enjoys writing, playing piano, dancing, and video games. Halima uses they, them pronouns and is a youth worker, activist, and artist based in Malmö. They have a long history of community organizing with specific devotion of centering the needs and struggles of Black and trans peoples. This panel takes its starting point in what being Black and trans or non-binary means in healthcare in general, as well as gender-affirming care. We will explore what changes need to be made to reduce barriers to access and interrogate racist structures within the healthcare system in Sweden. Please welcome on stage our panelists.
All right, so Theo introduced us, so I won't be doing that. But I'll briefly state what we'll be talking about today. So we start with discussing basically Black and trans and non-binary identities, especially in healthcare settings. But we'll go a bit broader than that, I think, focusing more on being Black and non-binary and trans in different communities. But we'll start by discussing what needs to be changed, basically, to reduce barriers and to interrogate racist structures within healthcare sector in Sweden. And as Theo said, I'm Kylo Andersson, and with me are Halima, Esse, and Nala. So I know Nala is chomping at the bit to discuss, basically. Come closer, come closer. This is more of a roundtable discussion now, but you're an audience that can listen in. Yes, Nala, how would you say that Swedish healthcare system, relating especially to trans issues, looks today?
I think Sweden is often considered to be very progressive, and it is in many ways. But I think when it comes to healthcare, there's a lot of bias, and there's a lot of old harmful way of thinking of trans people. And when it comes to the bias, I think healthcare providers don't understand intersectionality at all. And that affects the care that we get, because it's the lack of knowledge that the healthcare providers have about intersectionality, about racism, that affects us BIPOC people. And yeah, that could be very frustrating, especially when you are trans and BIPOC, because you already have so much other stuff going on. And then I think there's the pathologization about us, we're considered to be diagnosis, a mental health illness, and that dehumanizes us in a way, because we're not considered to be people expressing our identities, which we really are. It's nothing that needs to be diagnosed. And yeah, I think that plays a huge role. And I've also the gatekeeping of it all. I feel like I transitioned 8 years ago, and I had to like prove to my evaluator that I was trans enough and that I was like a girl. And I got judged about like the clothing I was wearing, if it was pink, if it was not pink. It was a very outdated consumption of what like femininity was, and it wasn't even femininity for me myself. It was femininity for the gatekeeper or the what's it called?
Evaluator.
Yeah, exactly. And that was, yeah, that's, I think that needs to change. That really needs to change. And
I would say also like this the femininity also from a white standpoint. I think
Exactly.
the fact of being or encapsulating all of these different things within you,
yeah,
just as you said, how we see Sweden as a very progressive, we speak about it in a very progressive way, but then how that also contradicts if you're black, and then also how those systems also kind of contradicts each other in a way. So we can talk about it being progressive, but it's in a very small sphere. As soon as you add something else, it just becomes completely different.
exactly. Yeah. Because like when you add like being BIPOC, that creates like a whole new layer of like challenges. And yeah, totally
No,
agree
and
with
especially
that.
different ideas about black femininity and masculinity,
Yeah.
where generally black women are ascribed more of a masculine identity, for example, and black men are seen as also hyper masculine in a way. So when you are trans and go across those, you're held to a different standard, basically. You have to be even more feminine, or even a different kind of masculine that's non-threatening, as well as a trans masc person.
Exactly.
And look, do you have any other comments on this topic specifically? What are the main issues now? And especially looking at binary roles, and that's kind of what we're discussing here. That, as most of us know in previous discussions here, that the rigidity of what you're supposed to aspire to. So the non-binary identities are really just an add-on in the current system. They're just added or other gender to the diagnostic criteria, and then demanding that you yourself make up something that they think makes sense.
Exactly. And I think that goes like way back to like I think it's a lack of like knowledge, and also like the erasing of our history, because I think that plays a huge, huge role. Because I remember when I was in Egypt and I was at this museum. My parents are from Egypt, so I'm always there. So I was at this museum and I saw this like goddess portrayed, or like God portrayed on the wall. And the name of the god was like Shai Shait. And it was like half feminine, half masculine. And I asked like our tour, like, who is this? And they told me about the history, and this god was like a symbol of creation and balance. So that just clicked for me, like we aren't like a new identities. We've always been here, and it's like
We made it.
yeah,
Literally.
like
We made it, and
no
it's
period,
even
yeah.
the absurdity then
Yeah.
to be within these spaces in Sweden, and you're left, just as Purity also said, you're left behind.
Yeah.
But we had the words for it. We made the words for
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
I think two spirits is a word that has always existed in history and now is also coming back. And like you say, it's always been there. It's the lack of how people accept it or not. And now we, the new generation, we are now claiming onto those languages and refusing to let society demand that they remain, buried. And I think it's good that we have this kind of platforms to talk about them, because it feels like you say, they are being forcefully forgotten. Yeah. So we have to keep reminding people that they've always existed. You just missed them. Now we will remind you again, and that's the mission.
And also that space of historical non-binary identities in other cultures than the Western culture. So
Yeah.
Western culture has now discovered non-binarity.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
And,
Congratulations.
Welcome, we have been
Welcome,
waiting.
finally.
and then living in a majority white country, or non-black at least, depending on where you are in the country, I think that becomes also, but also safeguarding against weird appropriation of our identities also becomes an issue. But I think having that, because you've discussed this previously, that healthcare providers have this intersectional knowledge. That they know somewhat about the history of different other types of genders and gender identities globally. Because then it's such a poor image that they have currently. They only have, and they assume that it's all made up from the internet, I think, rather than something that's real and historical.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I think we also have to talk about the racism that exists in healthcare, where you go to, you seek for help, but your skin type is not the type of. They don't even use that to educate the doctors and the people who are supposed to help you. So how do they know? If I tell them, oh, I have a rash here, oh no, it looks fine. It looks fine to you, but I'm telling you, it hurts. And it's the lack of being validated or accepted or even like acknowledged of the pain that you have. And therefore, it becomes like, oh, are you sure you're not just stressed? Are you sure it's not just in your head? Are you sure this is actually what it feels like? It's like black bodies are not always taking, the severity of our pain is not always taken seriously. And I think it's a huge problem that we don't talk enough about in healthcare, especially for LGBTQIA plus individuals seeking healthcare. It becomes really, really hard to be a black person when you know that there's this type of hostility that already exists, and then you're a queer body, and it's like this double hostility, and therefore you seek help from somewhere else, or you like do self-medication, and that is not always good, but it's what you have and what you can mentally afford, because you can't go to the people who are supposed to help you, and I think it's a social problem.
And also, I think, I mean, this is not just experiences and opinions. It's reflected in data and in statistics and in studies, how black women have an extremely hard time to get an autism diagnosis because they don't study it within us, and it shows up in different ways. Or so there's so many signs of these things outside of just like gender affirming care, and I think that it's also important then to talk about those structures. There are the structures in the whole of healthcare. It's the structures in the societies, and it's the structures that we also see reflected within these spaces. So like tying those together, I think will also give us answers of directions in a different way. We can't just look at one thing. We need to look at it in a broader sense.
Yeah.
Exactly. I think like representation needs to be more in like trans healthcare system, because I think when the providers understand and look like us and understand our reality and the experience that like BIPOC trans people go through, then the care will be better.
Exactly.
Because right now there's like non-existing representation. There's, and as you say, it's like it's a systematic thing. It's everywhere.
Yeah, and because our current healthcare system is based on medicalized racism, like that's literally how.
That is a term.
Yeah, that is the foundation, and it's still in Sweden. At least we have now several studies now of how black women giving birth are treated very differently, for example, and that's a global statistic as well. And from the U.S., the mortality rate when giving birth for black women is
Even during COVID, how we saw how black bodies were not being taken seriously, went home, and then passed away. There was an immense number of people that passed away after they had been like asked to leave from a doctor's appointment. So there's it's not new.
No.
There's so much that we could bring up to kind of validate the opinion and the words that we're saying. And
Yeah, no, and it all goes back to this idea specifically for black people that we are more durable in some way and that we can handle more pain.
Yeah.
And that's even now we still have a journalist in Swedish media who said that you have to puncture skin of black people harder than white people because they think we have tougher skin.
Yeah, yeah.
So that is still the very physicality.
Yeah.
Our physicality is brought into question that we are somehow more tough physically, and then that is used to say that we aren't suffering, that we maybe are exaggerating, or maybe it's like
Exactly.
a cultural faint or something that's been described, that you're fainting just because of a culture thing. But I think on the topic of vulnerabilities, looking at young LGBTQ people and community, can you discuss that a bit, Halima?
Yes. So I have for a long time worked with kids and teenagers, young adults who are LGBTQIA+. And I've done that in like meeting spaces in different cities, mostly south of Gothenburg. And I think that the struggles that we face as adults are not even to be compared to the struggles of being a minor who is then also dependent on the adults in their lives. Most often than not, these adults are not at all on their side. So there's an extreme, it's an extreme situation for a lot of kids. And also like the legality around it. Me as somebody that then works with them, there's so many blocking things that I can't go with them to the doctors. I can't sit in, I can't call with them. What we can do and what we've done is like, okay, you're going to like BUP, which is, how do I say BUP?
Psychiatry for young people.
Thank you. That wasn't that hard. So what then my role instead became was, okay, we'll make a checklist of like, okay, they're not allowed to ask you that, and if they ask you this, you don't have to answer. And this kind of like trying to work around something has definitely become a necessity and a skill. I feel like that I've just kind of had to learn. But the lack of access also for these kids of even understanding what their rights are. And I mean, I've told them to do things that are, I mean, legal, but also maybe not exactly. Of like, yeah, but you can record the conversation because that's legal as long as you participate. And sometimes, I mean, I do this as well whenever I meet any doctor or psychiatrist. It's the best thing. I think I started when I studied at Valand. But this thing of also telling them that sometimes it helps you just telling the person that I'm putting my phone here because I need to record it. And it doesn't have to be you saying that in the sense of like, I'm gonna catch you. I usually say like, oh, I have ADHD, I don't remember shit, I'm gonna record it. And all of a sudden, the way that they speak to you is completely different. Because what I've witnessed is these kids telling me about situations when they've been on their own, speaking to their teachers at school or their nurses at school, or going to like psychiatry care for kids. What they say in those rooms when the kids are either on their own or with their parents, when the parents aren't really even on their side, is horrendous. And I think that there's such a massive group that is severely suffering and are extremely not trusting to the adults around them. And I'm terrified of that group more and more disappearing, sadly enough.
It sounds like a tough job to not be able to follow these kids into the rooms where they need the most protection as well. And I feel like if it's not even just about you, it's also like on the guardians who are actually the people who are supposed to follow them into those rooms to have better understanding of of what the kids in question needs as support. To have a better support system is so important. And I remember when I was younger, and how terrified I was if I was alone in those kind of spaces where, like we talked about before, there's so many barriers that make you feel unwelcome in a space like that. And so going in for any checkup is already like traumatic, and the questions they ask, the way they make you feel, and not having any support system, that is just so overwhelming that when you leave the room, like whenever I would leave, I'd completely forgotten what I had talked about with them, what I'm supposed to do, what medication I'm supposed to take, because I was just panicking and trying to be on this, okay, ready for defense kind of like mode, where you constantly go in, you're over, hyper
Vigilance.
yeah, you're hyper vigilant for anything. And like you say, that is a good technique to tell them that, okay, this is being recorded, and then watch the switch. Because it really does happen instantly. I don't know if they're even aware that they're doing it, but it does happen.
They are. They are.
It's so crazy.
We need to also stop talking about things being like a choice. It's not like the lack of knowledge, it's the like refusal of learning.
Yeah, that's true.
They are choosing the words that they say, they are choosing what they're doing. And I think that when we can't change the system, we need to at least have the information about the system. We need to understand it. We need to understand where the like lines are, and that's a massive issue for like young queer kids that they don't know. I've had so many situations of kids that have told me horrible things that happen in school that are completely like it's not even legal, like it's completely, but because they don't know that they have any type of rights, they don't know, okay, if this happens, where do I go? They don't know that, and nobody tells them that. So I think that that's an extremely important thing of teaching these kids what their rights are, and how you anmäla, how you report stuff, like what are the lines. Okay, you report to this person first. If that person doesn't listen to you, okay, then you go to the next person. Do everything in writing. Don't take anything alone. Bring a friend, record it, so yeah. I think that there's so much power in information, and also kind of this sense of, no, it's not this person being mean to me. This is a system,
Exactly.
and I'm just a part of it. Like, I'm just facing it right now, but it's not about me. It also kind of fends off this like weird internalizing process that happens when you understand the information.
We have to take the spaces more accountable as well, and make them realize that they have a job, they have people, kids who rely on them to support, and hold them accountable when they are not, doing what they're supposed to do. I think in your case, it sounds like a really important job, but I can also imagine it's overwhelming to not always be around. So how do you navigate that? Because I'm genuinely curious.
A month ago I quit my job, which was the best thing I've done. I think that we should all more often say no, quit your jobs, break up, change your number. You don't have to talk to that person. I love my job, and it's not the first workplace where I've worked with this. I will always continue to work with this. But for me, I think that it definitely takes a strong-headed person, but it also, us as queer adults, knowing how we felt when we were queer kids, I feel like I also got so much from kind of having to go through these things and finding out the answer and being like, wait, okay, I can give you this fucking answer. Like, that thing also is just priceless, I think.
It's really a tough position to go into, because there's so much pathologization, and when you're forced to go to this place where they see you as like a mental illness, and they see you as like something abnormal and something unnatural, then there's, and I think that goes back to like history as well, because if you erase the narrative of being trans and binary in like history, then there's easier to treat you like this, because you have no history, you have no identity, you're like, you're what they tell you you are. And that's why I think like to depathologize the system completely is so like, I think that's like so good. Like we need to do that. We need to have like, I think we need to have consent models to like hormone therapy and surgeries. We need to involve more like trust also, because I feel like it needs to be a shift, because I feel like providers are using like, what do you call it? They're not using support and care. They're using control and like almost like manipulation in some kind of a way. And
like a hoarding of resources.
exactly, yeah.
Yeah, and having hard questions launched at you for 1.5 hours or more times in trans healthcare systems. So it's also wearing you down in a way to see if you cave and say something that shows that it's not genuine. To see that, you're really faking it. Now that I've made you tired by asking you about all your traumas.
Exactly. It's the, them thinking that it's a phase, and if we dig deep enough, we will make that phase not a phase. And you realizing that, well, if you want help, sometimes you just have to like know how to also manipulate them or use their own tactics against them to get what you want. And that may not be a good strategy for everyone, but it's a strategy that sometimes works. If you know like the system is there, it's rigged against you, so how can I also benefit from that?
I think that's a really also important thing. I think of like, because I think also like collectively like sharing the information of like, okay, so when you're in there, you can't say this thing. I think we give them so much power in describing us that we almost start to believe the words that they say when they refuse to give us care or when they're questioning our identity. We have to start thinking of these processes within this system as something that has nothing to do with us. I'm there to get this specific thing. So I think it's extremely important also between us within the community to share the answers to the questions.
Exactly.
You don't have to go in there and be yourself. You know what I mean? Because the system is not there for you to be yourself.
Exactly.
And that kind of shift, I think, is important in putting this barrier of like, this is my body and that is yours, and there is no overlap here.
Exactly, that is so vital. And also like reaching out to someone who's done the process as well, and maybe like ask them, okay, well, how did you do it? What did you avoid? Like stuff like that. And also to know like you don't have to give your history to them. You don't have to give your life to them. Like I don't need to tell you my story.
No.
You're not gonna get my story. It's for me.
And I think all of this is connected to an idea that because it is not really care, it is an evaluation, it is a review, investigation, directly translating the Swedish word. This need for a community that can teach you the intersectional aspects of this process and can give you support, I think is really what we're getting at here, that we need that within the trans community, and especially those of us who are black or are BIPOC people, to share the specifics, the cultural specifics as well, because there are stereotypes of us. So how to counter those in those kind of meetings, and to cross-generationally between us queer elders in our 30s, I guess.
I've been waiting all my life to be a queer elder.
To also, and people who've gone through the process, or as myself, who are dropouts/rejects of the process, to share what went wrong, or we learned from the process. And I think, Essa, you were going to discuss a bit both minority stress, but also white non-separatist spaces related to this.
Yeah, exactly. I think it's also like we talk so much about creating inclusivity in spaces, and that word includeren gets thrown around so many times. But when we actually look at the practice of it, how does it look like? It's like Purity said before. This is the first time that I feel like I see so many different faces, not just faces, but also faces and bodies that reflect me as well. And let's be honest, this topic that we're discussing today is Black, queer, and non-binary in Swedish health system. So I think we have to discuss how these spaces, we have to challenge the tokenism that sometimes exists willingly or not willingly. I think some of these companies or platforms, or I'm not talking about this one specifically, but I've heard that word so many times used when they mean well, but then if you look at the actual way that they go about the practice, it's very not inclusive of people who are BIPOC and queer or anything like that. And then you have the tokenism, where if they tick the box, okay, check, we have one Black person, or you happen to be queer, perfect. Or you also happen to be non-binary, well, that's just perfect. It looks good for them, but then when you are the only one who constantly has to also educate, that is exhausting. So talking about it and discussing this with other people, and also be confident and comfortable enough to assert your voice without being afraid of being perceived as difficult to work with or angry. Because that has been thrown around so much. You don't want to be like the angry Black person who challenges them, because they know what they're doing. They are aware of it. And so it's so refreshing, and I'm so grateful to be in spaces like this where we can talk about it without having to repeat so much what you all already know about the system to you, because we are just talking about our experiences and how we can also contribute to doing better. So I think tokenism, for one, is something that I would say we need to challenge that together and discuss how we can also help assert our voices without being put in a box of difficult to work with or whatever other terms that is negative and that has been used. Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely.
Makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, no, because also the very idea of us like taking space shows that we're not even supposed to be there.
Yeah,
But then also
exactly.
putting that added burden on that you're supposed to be this expert speaking from some kind of, but also from an individualized and also a very generalized perspective. You're supposed to talk about your individual traumas, because that's nice to listen to. But then it's also, you're supposed to be a historian, basically, and be able to break down colonialism or which specific region you're from. And that is, it places an undue burden, but it's also, what you discuss is also, it's an extractivism. You extract stuff from us, and by putting up our bodies as the tokens for, look how inclusive we are.
Yeah.
This is, if this body can be here,
Anybody.
anyone can be here. And being used as like a punchline, basically, to be a Black X whatever and blah, 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 blah. That we're not just allowed to rest in those spaces and take whichever role we deem fit.
Yeah.
And I think also, I think that we, for each other, play a big part in shifting that. Maybe not shifting it for everybody, like within the rooms, but shifting it within our tiny little room.
Collective.
Because I think I'm so immensely tired of I feel like I'm immensely tired of describing what the problem is, which is also weird because I'm supposed to sit here and describe what the problem is.
We do what we want.
Yeah, definitely. But I have so much faith in us taking care of us, and that can be the groups within the groups within the groups, and on different levels. I really, really do believe that when they don't help us, we help ourselves, because no one is coming, literally, and it's hard to hear and it's hard to say, but no one is coming. We have to do it ourselves. And even these things of like, I tell my, like the young, like the 20-something-year-olds that are going through this process, I tell them like, okay, wait 6 months and then do it together with your buddy. Like, we need to kind of band together, because I think also we're heading towards harder and more violent times. It's going to be harder for us to organize. It's going to be harder for us to meet like this. And we are being policed and observed on a severe scale, and it is just getting worse. So I think this kind of looking inwards and doing things together is definitely the answer, because we're not going to be able to do it on our own at all. We're not.
No, I definitely agree with that. Like the collectivism that you have around you, and also like how important it is to actually do embrace your identity, and also like knowing that you taking space doesn't mean you have to shrink yourself to fit into that space. And I think it's important to remind ourselves and to remind younger ones around us that it's okay to be bold, be extra, be loud, and be yourself without having someone tell you, can you dim it down a little? Because if you have to tell me to dim myself down for you, then I don't want to be around you. And like you say, the collectivism that we have around us is so important. And if people don't have that, we need to do better to make them understand that we are here and we are there for each other.
And even if they don't understand it, we can tell ourselves, like,
exactly,
we can tell each other,
ourselves.
fuck off. Like, we don't have to change everyone. I'm fine with not changing someone.
I'm not
we can remind
changing
ourselves,
anyone.
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because there's so much of our power and energy that is being wasted and trying to convince these people. Like,
No, I wasn't talking about people. I'm talking about our people who don't know that there is hope at the end of the tunnel. Because when I was younger, I didn't always have the collectivism that I have now, and it felt so overwhelming and so alone, especially if you are from a family where you can talk about these things as well, and you can just ask certain questions, and that therefore I used the people around me, and it was so important to find that, to know that, okay, I'm not alone, even though it may seem like I'm alone. You get what I mean? Like it's so hard, and I think as an adult still, I can still struggle to find those spaces where I feel completely welcomed. Even though they are queer spaces, it's still very hard to feel welcomed in all of queer spaces.
And if it's not a space, find a person, you know?
That too.
Find one person.
Yeah. Important.
Yes. And I think the main theme today, we've gone a bit off the healthcare topic, but I think our answer to the question of how to make it better, I think is clear both from this conversation and previous conversations we've had, is to have communities. Even if it's, as you said, one person, a buddy, and to find different methods that work for you to both survive and, I know it's cringy, also thrive. But try, please, try. Because I think that is the real issue here, that we've focused so much, and because the system we're working within is an individualistic system, it doesn't allow us. It discourages us from working together about talking about these things. So I think the only answer that we have is to talk about these things in different kinds of spaces, and to really tie it together and become different small groups. But also, I think the main topic here is also teaching the people who have not been included, like young people. They are the people who are very vulnerable currently, and us, older people, working with them, talking with them, and trying to find ways that they can actually survive in the system.
Yeah, and like if you're a person that's gone through it and you hear about somebody that's just starting, go with them.
Exactly.
Don't wait until they ask you. Call them up and say, hey, so this happened when I did it. You can call me if you like. The people that are already in front need to look behind you. It's
Exactly.
not the other way around.
No, exactly. Well put. And I think it's so important to remember that the healthcare system for gender identity or affirming care can also be a tasking process. It's a long one that many people don't always have the emotional time or the mental time to wait for, and we need to do better as a collective community to then, as you say, if you've gone through the process, if you have all this, and you can also be of assistance to someone who may not know how to go about starting that affirmative care, reach out, because it's so difficult and so scary to be the one to reach out. Like, I got tired of waiting for healthcare confirmation from them about something that I already know by myself, about my own body. But I still had to wait in a really long line, and I'm sure I'm still waiting in that line. I'm still there at the bottom somewhere.
And on that note, if you want to discuss this further, we're not offering any questions in this session, but please discuss, contact us in some way, come up to us later in the day. But now we'll move on to the next excellent point.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.